It's time for Perspective on a Conversation. Tonight is about the referendum, like I've been saying. And in studio have the political tag team of Churchil, Saoke and Lwanga. Thank you both for joining us. But it's been long since we sat on this set to have these conversations. But both of you are very much welcome.
Thank you.
Millie, I'll start with you, obviously, because you're the lady here and, you know, the two gentlemen here.
Yeah.
This referendum clamor,
Yes.
do you see us having a referendum, as it were?
First and foremost, thank you
Yes.
for having me here. It's been a
You're
minute,
welcome.
like
Yes.
you say, a long minute. And we've come at the right time when I think the indecision around whether we'll have a referendum or not, in my opinion, has settled down. We will have one.
Yeah.
I think the question right now is a matter of when, because initially the deputy president was very much against the referendum call, but I think that most people had jumped the gun because the dream team, the team that is supposed to be working on the handshake between the two eminent leaders, has taken quite a long time before giving some direction.
By eminence, you mean President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I mean those two eminent leaders who brought us from that brink.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. So I think that because they took that minute to settle down and give us direction for many reasons, Kenyans had begun trying to look at which direction forward. And it became quite apparent that one of the things we're going to need to do is to have a referendum because the constitution had to be touched. The clamor for it was rising amongst faith-based leaders, civil society actors, and then, of course, the political class, the key politicians in the country, and then, of course, with the key voice coming from the deputy president saying, no, not now. But now, across the board, we can hear everybody saying yes. I think the question just remains when. Because, like civil society, have come out very strongly to say, not quite that fast. Let's first have a conversation before we have that referendum.
And we'll talk about that in terms of a timing. But Churchil, do you also hold the view that indeed we are going to have a referendum between now and 2022?
I think from a political perspective, it's just a matter of time. Because, you know, the political class have a way of entrenching their will on people. And one of the ways in which they do it is by having a gradual acceptance amongst the populace. And I think that is what has been happening the past days, bringing the discussion, in escalating the discourse in public, so that in our minds, we are having a discussion of a possibility. You know, the fact that we are already talking about, are we likely to have it, is already, we're already accepting it. So for me, I think as time goes and as we continue to have this discourse, we are going to transcend from the point where we are discussing whether we should have this referendum to what should be in the referendum. So we are gradually getting into the details of the referendum.
All right, let us also now, without gradually, let's get into the debate completely. But maybe you've talked about the deputy president.
Yes.
But has the deputy president provided clarity on whether he's for this referendum? Because the other time he said, set the question, we are ready. Just the other day, I think on Friday or Saturday when he was in Kiambu, he said, my hands are full. I'm not going to engage in this conversation about the referendum. Can we say the deputy president has provided clarity on whether he's really for the referendum?
Well, he has provided some form of clarity, in my opinion, because he's on record saying that let those who have the energy go round and do the groundwork that needs to be done, and then bring the questions to them. So that, in my opinion, means that he's saying that whip up the masses and see whether they want to support that referendum or not. For him, he's going to continue working, and then at the right time, once the question has been set, he is going to be able to participate. That's how I read it. At least it's not forthright. You know, like at one time, the president did say that this issue of amendment of the constitution is not here or there when he was talking to the business society. He did actually say no.
And he's focused on the Big Four agenda.
That is focused on the big four. Then the deputy president also did at that time also say that there's no amendment, we accepted this constitution and we are going to work with it, and it's too early for us to be talking about amendments. But now the key person against it, because the president then went quiet on the issue of the referendum, But the deputy continued to talk about it often, saying that, no, we shall not have this referendum. But now his tone is different. Yeah. And we can only read it as meaning that he has changed.
Wait, because we'll also discuss the president on whether really is for this referendum. But Churchil, Saoke, yes, I know you will add a comment on that, but as you do that, the other question is, Paul Mwangi, a co-chair of this Building Bridges initiative, has actually said politicians are jumping the gun because why they were supposed to go around the country is to actually get from Kenyans whether they need this referendum. Yeah. But already the former Prime Minister has already said we need this referendum. Do you think this is the time when the President and the former Prime Minister should reveal the details, you know, of what this handshake was about so we are able to know where we're moving?
I think before I answer that one, let me weigh in on the Deputy President issue. I think that the Deputy President is just being a politician. I mean, he got to test the waters. Remember, where did this whole clamor of constitutional change come from? It came from one of his, what we could perceive as a nemesis, a person with which they don't see eye to eye. Yeah. And so if the person of the caliber of the former Prime Minister says that, you know, we need to have a constitutional change, and this is someone who is a threat to my 2022 political ambition, and I come out supporting his agenda, then I am playing a second fiddle. So he was just trying to sit at a position that, you know what, I am also independent. I know what I want. I want to become president of this country, and I also need to inform discourse. Because ideally, the former president, the former prime minister, has influenced the national discourse. And when you have a presidential ambition, one of your main aims is to find a way of creating and informing a political discourse. Now, if somebody has jumped the gun and informed it, you must then sit back and ask yourself, how do you reinform it? So he was trying to reinform it so that it does not just become something that I'm just following you because you said it, but I also have my own opinion. But then again, he may have also been testing the waters. You also use it to test the waters, because, you know, you could be antagonizing him, and then you end up becoming an isolated island.
Fantastic. Let's go to the Building Bridges initiative.
Now, the Building Bridges initiative, when you look at the Paul Mwangi is not a politician. He's a technocrat. And the whole thing about people not knowing the details of the Building Bridges initiative is a recipe of the former Prime Minister to maybe use it to push the agenda in terms of, okay, we may have agreed that there is need for a referendum, but at the bureaucratic level, maybe things are taking too long. What do? Come out in public and push it from the political angle. Okay, that's
or it might be a roadmap to 2022.
It could be. It could be, and it may be part of it. But you will not expect Paul Mwangi to delve deeper into the issues. It's just something that shows you that the still water, it is very still, but it is running very deep. Whatever the former Prime Minister is doing with whatever Paul Mwangi is doing are very coherent. But you'll never find the convergence point until the last point.
But look, you know, still on the Building Bridges, and I'm still on you. These guys are gobbling our taxes. But there's no clarity on what they are doing. Shouldn't this be the time for clarity? So that the country moves in one direction?
You know, that is what everybody would want. But in the house of cards, no.
Or the 48 laws of power. All right, quite interesting. But let me come to you, Millie. And because you're a lawyer yourself, and this is almost is it the 10th year? We are doing 8 years since the promulgation of a new constitution. Is it ripe time for us to even start thinking about amending this document?
Definitely. Even at the point when we were drafting the Constitution, we actually provided an entire chapter, chapter 16, that deals with amendment of the Constitution, being cognizant of the fact that we may need to amend it. We have had 8 years of testing it. We have had 2 general elections. conducted under the current constitution. We have actually begun to see and experience devolved governance and see how that works. We have begun to see how an independent parliament, we may not have seen quite clearly last time because the tyranny of numbers issue caused confusion. But right now, I think in the era of the handshake, we have seen parliament work as an independent body oversighting the executive, where they're united.
There are people who will disagree with you about their independence after...
Well, after the finance bill, that of course dented it quite a bit. But we have seen Parliament moving more and more as an independent body rather than, you know, beforehand we used to see parties. Now we are seeing bodies, institutions. We are seeing the executive, we are seeing Parliament, and I think it's very good, particularly for students, to be able to see clearly in Kenya the difference between these various arms that we have always been told different arms of governance, and we can't quite see them. Now we can a little bit more clearly see that. So I think that has been a positive. But whether we will be able to or whether we should move, now picking up on the question you had asked, Saoke, whether we should be able to move to a referendum right now, I think that even at the point when the team, Paul Mwangi's team, came to start sitting, one of the things that we did say, and I think in this particular television station, was that we as Kenyans already know what we want. We even did an audit of the Constitution. The issues that we have or our concerns as far as the electoral process is concerned, as far as the security organs are concerned, as far as issues of governance is concerned, are issues that are already at the table. And we said we cannot go back again to ask people. I think at one point the former president, retired Daniel Arap Moi, told us this clamor of saying that the constitution must be written by all Kenyans is going to take you nowhere. Get a team. And we refused. And eventually when we did get a team of experts, we got a constitution. The Bomas process did not result in a constitution because you can only consult so much. So I think that when this team started, one of the things we needed was a clear roadmap on where next and how, so that we could determine whether the amendments will be extensive enough to require a referendum, because the law is very clear on which parts, and this time I mean it really is clear, on which parts of their constitution when being amended require a referendum, and those that could go by other processes.
All right.
Yes.
At one end, we have expanding the executive to accommodate Kenyans, or if you were to say inclusivity for that matter. You have punguza mzigo. And there's also debate on whether the issue of an election, whether it should be in August or in December, is a matter of a referendum or not. So far as it were, we have like 3 issues that are being canvassed. How do we go throughout these 3?
I think objectively, it will be preferable for the country to go the direction of looking at the question of the wage bill. It will be in the public, it will be in the public good to look at how do we make the government, our governance architecture, extremely lean and having well-defined roles that enables the country achieve the aspirations of a devolved system of government with extremely lean government structure. Now that is what the public good, it will be in the public good to go into the referendum for. But now the other realities that exist are issues of political, political scores and people wanting to take advantage of the clamor to clinch certain positions, and we are not going to run away from this, Diego.
Which begs the question, will this be a Wanjiku-led referendum, or it will be hijacked by politicians?
It has never been a Wanjiku-led. It is not going to be a Wanjiku-led. Even as of now, it's not yet a Wanjiku-led. Where is the Kenyans when we are talking about referendum?
Ekuro Court claims he has over 700,000 signatures.
Who is he representing?
Being endorsed by Wanjiku.
Who is he representing? And you know,
what are you asking?
I think this is the hardest question that we may want to ask ourselves, even as Kenyans and the political leaders take us into the constitutional clamor for constitutional change. To who is this for? Because many times the politicians know how to make it be for us. but it is never for us. And we strongly believe, the people will strongly believe it is for us until the point when they realize that 70% was for them, 30% was for us.
What was for us? Yeah.
So the whole question of, even as of now, where Kenyans are in the constitutional change is still questionable.
Yeah.
A time is coming when when this clamor will have really touched down and it's moving, and you'll hear Kenyans say that, you know, so and so has read it. Why should I read it?
Katiba ni sasa na kama sio sasa ni sasa hivi.
So these are really questions that we must really ask ourselves, and I think these are sometimes the reasons why I go with what Meli just said a few minutes ago about, is it not just possible for us to think of what kind of country we want to see in 2060? And make it now.
But does the electorate have an idea on where they want this country to
They may not have an idea, but if we have a team of people who really, and we remove these things from the politicians, I know it is difficult, but it is the ideal scenario.
All right.
We get just teams of people who really have the interest of the country at heart, and look at this country in the next 30, 40 years and see how will our country be? Because one of the biggest things that we are going to lose, even this whole clamor of the constitutional change, even if it comes, one of the point where we are going to lose it, and we have already begun losing it, is at the point when we will be discussing the issues on the constitutional change with personality in our minds. And so we end up saying that, you know, we want to punguza muzigo, but because Saoke has said no, I will have to say yes. You lose the logic and end up fighting. You fight yourself on a platform that would have been for the good of the nation.
All right. Very interesting. At the height of the tensions we had last year, I remember us talking about ensuring that a government is inclusive. But then, sorry, you're left with two questions in your mind. That on one end, tunapunguza mzigo, or we are reducing the burden on Kenyans because the wage bill is too high. But at the other time, expanding the executive to have like 2 deputy prime minister, 1 prime minister, I don't know, 2 vice presidents, and returning all the power again to the president. I mean, and the prime minister again leading, you know, troops from parliament. How will these two systems work in any way?
And I think that is why, if Ekuru wanted to help the country, he would have already formulated a question or a bill that people would be discussing, rather than having a general thought that would we want to go to a referendum or not, and then getting people to sign on when you're not sure what the question is. I say this because the issue of punguza mzigo has got little to nothing to do with the payment of wages. We have been told by economists who are worth their salt that even if we were to reduce, including the number of seats, we save little to nothing. We have been told that the amount of monies that we are losing because of loopholes that allow massive, just a few months ago, we were saying that now it has moved from losing millions to billions. And someone is telling us it is just 800 million, it's nothing, you know, like you can pick 800 million on the streets, you know. If we would then look at where the problem is it in the wages, when we are still in a country where we are talking about creating employment and having more people employed, and that we are not employing enough? In a country where we had frozen, we keep freezing employment of people and getting back into that quagmire of having people unemployed. The key thing would be, how do we ensure that the systems we have put in place, do we need anti-corruption as a commission? How should it be constituted? Those are things that we must discuss now, because it will stop that.
Even though it doesn't, you know, make sense to say we reduce on the seats, because the wage bill is not a conversation in terms of reducing the seats. But that also doesn't mean that we add more.
I I agree, but we also have this serious conversation when it comes to our sustainability, our peace and security, where we have said that the question why we are always destabilized is because people feel they are not included. Can we try, and we did try, to come up with formulas that will make Kenyans feel that largely we feel that this is a representative form of governance. We still have not answered that question, seemingly, because even the last 2 elections, the country has almost ground to a halt. Up to just the beginning of this year, we were asking which direction. There was the United Republic of Kenya and the People's Republic of Kenya in the offings. So we can't afford to go back that direction. We must answer those. If we do answer those, the minute that Kenyans are sure that things are working at the back of it, they concentrate on building the economy and things are sure.
Absolutely.
And that should, in my opinion, form the 99% discussion of constitutional change. How can we be able to make a country where everybody feels inclusive and electoral periods do not come out as anarchy in Kenya? That is the question that I think if we can solve, and we solve it not for 2022, but for 2027, for 2032, and for 2037 onwards, we will have helped this country and to generate.
Tell me something, Churchill. These temperatures out of an election, are they because of hyped political temperatures, or are they because of a failure of our constitution?
I will not want to say that it is a failure of the constitution. The constitution is something that is given spirit by the people. So if the constitution fails, it's not the constitution, but the people. Remember, there are countries, there are democracies and republics around the globe that are ruled with no written laws. So it is not about failure in of constitution, but failure in constitutionalism, where now the constitutionalism brings about the failures of the people and the institutions. So if we want to make a clamor for constitutional change that will bring stability in the country, then we must be able to think about a bloated government, maybe a bloated government, but with the future in mind, in terms of what are the things that have been dividing us as a country during elections? What is the divide? And how can we bridge this divide so that election come, election go, we will differ, but we will never divide ourselves on that core thing that always brings us apart. And I think this is why most established democracies around the world have always institutionalized monarch. I mean, why don't these gentlemen think of institutionalizing a monarch?
Well, I'm sure you will get into trouble with some people if you were to go that route. But very quickly, because we are about to wind up.
No, it's just a strange thinking, John. I mean,
but really, inclusivity.
Yes.
Because the way Kenyans view inclusivity is about us being the 45 communities now. We are about 45 communities. Inclusivity, for those people to feel that they are part of government. What are you espousing here as inclusivity?
I think a system of government where the checks and balances across the different arms of governance are clearer. Where you find, for example, that the presidency is not absolute, there is a check, that there is opportunity for you to have senior positions with say, because there's a difference between having, for example, right now we have a deputy president who definitely has clout. But we also have deputy governors who, in many counties, with no clout, who still ask the question, what is my role? Now, it is possible that we could, in 2022, have a deputy president with no clout. It is possible. We don't know who the character would be then. So we want a situation where the power will still not be vested in the presidency alone, but we will have a situation like what we had come 2013, where you knew that there is, you can be able to rely on the presidency or the office of the deputy president to be able to resolve your issues. You can be able to rely on different offices to be able to determine that the issues that concern your region will be well addressed and will be taken to to the hurt by the government of the day.
Or we should make this thing rotational, maybe.
Yes.
Maybe that's another suggestion. Yes.
Well, at least I also have one of my agendas that I can put in the referendum, but very quickly. Yes.
I mean, if we think of having rotational presidency, and I think it still answers what we were just trying to delve into. If we can focus the constitutional change on trying to bridge the thing that has been dividing us and solve it, we will have helped generations. And that could be one of the proposals you are making, a rotational presidency.
Absolutely. But now, that's just my proposal, and I hope it doesn't end here, but very quickly, the president. The gentleman has not been clear, he has not told us on where he stands when it comes to the referendum. But you're a political analyst, maybe you have read his body language. What do you think he's saying?
He's doing the right thing.
Yes, I agree.
If I was sitting with him in State House, I would tell him, keep quiet the more. That is, because you should not get into, if I am coming from where I work or in my village, and I want my village to change the chief, why should the president begin getting into that discussion so early? Get into that discussion when all the other opinions have been aired, and you now come up and sum it as the boss. I mean, he's doing the right thing.
But his core principle in the handshake is clear, that this referendum is coming. We are doing a referendum.
It is his role.
But him, big four only.
It is his role. Remember, the president is also the symbol of national unity.
Exactly.
Those who are for the handshake, those who are against the handshake, he is still their father. But ultimately, whichever direction the country will go, it will be a decision that is driven by the rationality of the country's interest, and not just supporting one side of the political
My director is on my neck to wind up. 30 seconds. When do you see us having this referendum?
Maybe in 3 years' time.
3 years' time?
Yes.
That will be 2021?
Yes.
Okay. Churchill?
I want to bend on before elections, maybe 2020, but I think we need to have it in 2019.
2019.
Although it's not possible because of the time frames. But the earlier the better, so that we...
So there's no way we are going to have a 7th debate as referendum in 2022. That doesn't look like it's an option already.
It may actually interfere with the 2022 elections.
Lwanga, Churchil, Saoke, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And of course, your deliberations very much appreciated. O'Brien Kimani is up next with Business News.